Hey, One More World Entertainment. And episode 5 of Starfleet Academy has done so much damage to the brand. It was the worst episode of Star Trek in the 60-year history of Star Trek. And of course, the writer or co-writer of said episode, Tawny Newsome, who of course was the voice actor in Lower Decks and seemingly is a writer on this as well as an executive producer for Starfleet Academy, God knows why, has now done an interview which we're going to take a look at, where she breaks down everything for this episode, what kind of gargantuan task it was to give DS9 resolution on Starfleet Academy. They don't. They were meant to solve the mystery of Cisco and didn't, because to start with, it was never a mystery anyway. But the one thing that everyone is calling out and saying how unforgivable it is that she wrote herself into the episode as the new Dax. Yeah, she is Dax. But wait till you hear when she talks about this episode and her writing and how nobody dares speak to her about what you can and cannot do. It's like, you're a nobody. You really are just a nobody. So where you have this almost god complex for writing of, oh, they didn't dare say this type of stuff to my face. And of course, this episode goes into canon and stuff like that. And was it too much canon for the show? And the irony is, nobody is watching this show. But the bigger point is, nobody new is coming to this show. And if they are, the idea that this would be your introduction to DS9 is a joke. But let's have a look at this anyway. So, it's saying before it gets to the questions that Starfleet Academy was written as a love letter to DS9. Series Alchemation Mail was co-written by veteran Trek novelist and modern-era Trek writer-producer Christian Byer, along with Tawny Newsome, who is best known to fans as the voice of Beckett Mariner in Star Trek Lower Decks. This is Newsome's first time as a TV series writer, although she has lots of experience writing for comedy. If that's the case, then it must be horrendous, because nothing in this shit was funny. And she is an unabashed Star Trek fan, especially when it comes to Deep Space Nine. I call BS on all of that. So speaking to Trek Movie at the premiere last month, Tawny talked about the road to crafting this episode with laughs and tears. The writer discusses the importance of DS9, the involvement of Avery Brooks, which he had none, the team effort writing process, Easter eggs, and more. So, by the way, the speech from Avery Brooks at the end of the episode was pulled from one of his albums from like 2011 or something. So everyone's like, well, he must have given permission for that. Do you think they really asked? This is possibly one of those do it and ask for forgiveness later kind of thing. So, because it's interesting that he didn't show up for the episode. He wasn't willing to show up or even allow his likeness to be used. So that's interesting. So the first question anyway was this. This episode is mega lore heavy. Given that the show is geared as an entry point for new audiences, was there any pushback? Did anyone say this is too much canon? The irony of that being a question already of, hey, you can't have canon in Star Trek, where it's like, what? But wait till you hear her answer to this. No one said those words to my face. Whether they said them about the episode, I think they knew better than to say it to me, because I was pretty adamant that for this episode, it was our job to make this a homage, a celebration, and really a bit of a correction for what I feel has been an oversight in a lot of modern Trek. We haven't talked nearly enough about the Siscos, about Benjamin Sisko, or about the show Deep Space Nine at all, despite it being a massive addition to our canon. So I was pretty adamant. I'll say I was frothing at the mouth some days about how important this was. So if anyone thought it was too much canon, they share those details among themselves. So you see already, it's like, I'm such the Star Trek lore person, I know everything. How they wouldn't dare speak to me about this. By the way, her saying there hasn't been nearly enough Sisko's talk in modern Trek, maybe because it's all fucking prequels, you dumb bint. Yeah, every one of these shows is a prequel except for Picard, and only Discovery after season 4. So, or season 3 I should say. So why would there be any conversations about DS9 and Ben Sisko and stuff? There wouldn't be. As for Picard, why would there ever been a conversation about Sisko? It would have made no sense. And the fact that this show is set 1,000 years in the future from Sisko and DS9, why would there be any conversations about Sisko and DS9? Makes absolutely no sense. So the next question is, did you talk to Sarek about before writing the episode? That's of course Jake Sisko. And she says, he's amazing. He is incredible. And yeah, Sarek and I were on the phone and at lunches for months and months and months and months trying to figure out how we could get this done. Getting the episode made was such a gargantuan feat, and I have had so many partners locked arm in battle. Between co-showrunners Noga Landau and Alex Kurtzman, Sarek, executive producer Aaron Byers, my co-writer Kristen Beyer, who's been such a fierce advocate from the jump, so many people came to my aid to help me push this thing through. I don't even know where to start, but all I can tell you is that it was seemingly so impossible to be able to address the hugeness of the Sisko story with some of the limitations that we have because of canon, some of the limitations that we have because of available actors, and we really just wanted to honour the man, Avery Brooks. We wanted to honour the character Sisko. We wanted to honour that show which in the franchise has had the least rebooting. It's my absolute favourite, and I just wanted to celebrate it and not put a close to his story, but just put a little feeling of completion for one part of it to just give some of us some resolution. They already did that in what's called books, where Sisko did return, that his task with the prophets was completed and he returned. So this idea of, oh, the story was never finished and stuff like that. And again, if this is an entry point for new audiences who've never watched Star Trek, then they wouldn't have a clue as to who and what you're even talking about. So none of this makes any sense when you're listening to it, because it's like no one that you think is joining this series to watch for the very first time knows anything about Deep Space Nine, Ben Sisko, Jake Sisko, the Defiant. None of it. So why are you trying to make this episode this big thing? And the irony is, the whole mystery about Sisko is the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode, and the rest of the episode completely forgets about it because it ends up just becoming about Sam getting drunk. And the irony is, the entire story for this episode wasn't even to resolve what happened to Ben Sisko and stuff. It was to affirm that Sam is great just the way she is, which is, by the way, window licking retarded. But that is what the episode is. That's what Jake is there for. He comes in at the very end to speak to her, even though it's all in her head. Keep that in mind. The hologram is imagining that Jake Sisko is sitting there telling her, oh, my dad was full of love, but he did things his way, and that's exactly what you should do. Do things your way, because you're great just the way you are. Very same as, obviously, they ripped off The Rise of Skywalker when Ben Solo, as Kylo Ren, sees his father in his own mind and convinces himself, when you sit back and realize Han Solo was in his mind, he talked himself into being the good guy. This is the same thing here. Sam talked herself into doing things her way and just being the way she is. That is who she's meant to be, and everybody will love her for it. That's what the whole episode is. So this whole idea of, oh, we wanted to respect DS9 and do this and do that, it had no bearing on anything for DS9. What happened to Sisko, even though everybody knows what happened to Sisko. The irony that she is saying, oh, I'm such a big fan of Deep Space Nine, I'm the canon lover of that show, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, clearly you didn't know how it ended. You didn't know that Sisko told everyone where he was and what he was going to be doing. You didn't know that he said he will return. It could take a month, could take a couple of years, it could take a decade. He wasn't sure, but he said he would return. You're such a big fan, you didn't even know that there's Deep Space Nine books that actually show that Sisko returned. Interesting, isn't it? So it just kind of goes on and asks about, like, hey, what did Avery think and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, there's nothing. But then we have to get down to the main part here. So this is the question. Was there any question you would write yourself into the episode? And as Dax, did you have to think twice, or was it more, of course? So she said, no, I was the last piece of the puzzle. I did not intend to write myself in at all, because it didn't occur to me that I would be anyone other than Mariner. And I thought it would be a little too cheeky to have some future version of Mariner or some descendant. It just seemed too irreverent for the magnitude of this episode. So no, I love Professor Lal, I think is how you pronounce it, who was constructed by me and Christian Byer, and she was meant to be the perfect shepherd for this story. It was so important that we had someone who it made sense that she would have the only copy of Jake's book. A lot of intentionality went into who could this be, and then when we all kind of went, oh, you know, the Trill lifespan could be this long, this could be Dax. It really excited Noga Landau, our showrunner. It excited all of us, and we went, okay, yeah, let's make this Dax. And then, as I said, I was the last piece of the puzzle when they said, okay, Antoni is going to do it. It was quite a surprise, I think, for all of us, but I had really great support from showrunners and from Christian. So she's trying to say, oh, I didn't intentionally write myself into this and blah, blah, blah. And this is the part now that's, I think, weird, that she kind of answers this question, where it says, the question is, so is she Cardassian, Bajoran and Trill? I thought I saw some Bajoran on the nose. She says, no Bajoran. The nose looks a little Bajoran, didn't it? No, I think we're just saying, yeah, we decided that she was just Cardassian and Trill. There's an issue with all of that. Number one, this is the most awkward one, is why would a Trill hook up with a Cardassian? That just makes no sense. But more so to the point, only pureblood Trills can actually be hosts to the symbionts. That's canon. That's established. Not just in original lore, but even in their own lore that they've established through Discovery with the Trill. They've purely made it out that only pure blood Trills can be hosts. Now, people will say, put it in TNG when they were first introduced, it wasn't a Trill species that had the symbiote in it. Yeah, correct. And what happened to that guy? He died. That's right. His body was rejecting the symbiote because he wasn't a Trill. And the only thing they could do was, well, we need to pop him into Riker. And Riker, his body started rejecting it and couldn't take the stresses of having the symbiote until they put him into an actual Trill by the end of the episode. Also, the first actual lesbian moment in Star Trek history was that episode, which they originally cut out the end of that episode with the female Trill and Beverly Crusher. Don't know if you know that, but that originally was cut out, and because they're like, oh, we can't show that. But then you even go to DS9 and you found out that even Trill themselves sometimes would not be able to take the symbiote. Only certain people could take the symbionts. You remember the guy who takes over the station and kidnaps Dax because he wants the Trill of Dax? He's like, no, I was meant to be the carrier of the symbiote. I want it. And they took it out and put him in it, and his body rejected the symbiote. He rejected Dax's symbiote. So even pure-blooded, I'm not even sure if he was pure-blood Trill, But either way, even Trill themselves sometimes cannot actually become hosts for the symbionts. So the idea that a half Cardassian can be a host, yeah, no, doesn't work that way. And it just shows you how little they actually know about it, including the massive DS9 fan who should have known this and clearly didn't. But there you go, folks. She's talked about why she wrote the episode basically and how she ended up becoming the new Dax. And by the way, I don't think the symbionts themselves actually live forever, because to do what they've just done means that they're practically immortal. And I'm pretty sure it was established somewhere that they do have a lifespan. So yeah, a 1,000-year-old Dax, and it's now a cadet. By the way, we'll probably never see this character again. And that's the other stupid thing, is like, okay, so we now know that this character of Dax is on board this ship, and we're probably never going to see them again. Work that one out. But what do you guys think? What do you think, number one, about her being Dax? Do you believe that Tanya Newsom even understands and is actually a massive fan of DS9? What do you think about her idea that they would never say no to me because I'm the expert on all things DS9 and stuff like that? Let me know what you think about all of this. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, hit the hype button, all that good stuff. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.